Imagine waking up on Christmas morning to discover that 5 of your children have vanished without a trace. And for the next 40 years, you spend every day wondering if they were still alive somewhere, waiting to be found. This is not a horror movie. This is one of America's most disturbing unsolved mysteries, the mystery of the Sodder children. And even today, nearly 80 years later, one question remains. Did 5 children really die in a fire, or were they kidnapped on Christmas Eve? Let's find out. It was Christmas Eve, 1945. The Second World War had just ended, and families across America were celebrating peace after years of uncertainty. In the small town of Fayetteville, West Virginia, George and Jenny Sodder were preparing for bed. George was a successful businessman and built a comfortable life for his family. The Sodders had 10 children. That night, 5 of them chose to stay awake a little longer. 14-year-old Morris, 12-year-old Martha, 9-year-old Louie, 8-year-old Jenny, and 5-year-old Betty were excited about their Christmas gifts and wanted to play before going to sleep. Eventually, George and Jenny went upstairs. Nothing seemed unusual. But sometime after midnight, everything changed. At around 12:30 a.m., the telephone rang. Jenny answered. A strange woman she didn't recognize was asking for someone who didn't live there. In the background, Jenny heard laughter and clinking glasses. She thought it was simply a wrong number. She hung up and returned to bed. Before doing so, she noticed something strange. The downstairs lights were still on. The curtains were open. The front door was unlocked. The children were nowhere in sight. Assuming they had finally gone to bed, she turned everything off and went upstairs. An hour later, she woke again. This time, it was because she heard a loud thud on the roof. Moments later, she heard something rolling across it. Then silence. She had no idea that these sounds would become one of the most important clues in the entire mystery. At approximately 1 a.m., Jenny smelled smoke. She rushed from her room and discovered flames spreading through the house. Panic erupted. George and Jenny desperately gathered the children they could find. 4 children escaped with their parents, but 5 were missing. The 5 children who had stayed awake downstairs were nowhere to be found. George screamed their names. No answer. He tried rushing into the burning house, but the flames were too intense. He attempted to use a ladder to reach the upper floor. The ladder, which was always kept against the house, was gone. He then tried using his work trucks to climb onto the roof. Strangely, both trucks refused to start, despite working perfectly the day before. As the fire grew stronger, the family could only watch helplessly. Within a short time, the house collapsed into a pile of burning rubble. 5 children were believed trapped inside, or so everyone thought. But this is where the mystery begins. Because almost immediately, things stopped making sense. The local telephone operator later revealed that the house's phone line had not been damaged by fire. It had been deliberately cut. Think about that for a moment. If the fire caused the phone failure, that would be understandable. But someone had physically cut the line before or during the fire. Who would do that? And why? Then another witness came forward. A man claimed he had seen someone removing a ladder from the Sodder property on the night of the fire. Remember the missing ladder George desperately searched for? Someone may have stolen it. The official investigation concluded that the 5 children had died in the blaze. The problem was that investigators found no remains. Nothing. Authorities argued that the fire had been so hot that the children's bodies were completely destroyed. At first glance, that explanation sounded reasonable. But George Sodder wasn't convinced. Neither was Jenny. The couple began researching cremations and house fires. They discovered that even in much hotter fires, human bones are usually still found. Experts pointed out that complete destruction of skeletal remains generally requires temperatures far beyond those reached in a typical house fire. So where were the bones? Where was any evidence that the children had actually been inside the house when it burned? The more the Sodders investigated, the stranger the story became. Could the fire have been an act of revenge? Or was something even darker involved? Then came the sightings. Over the years, multiple people claimed to have seen the missing children alive. One witness reported seeing the children in a passing vehicle near the time of the fire. Another woman claimed she saw several children matching their descriptions at a roadside hotel. A worker at a tourist stop said he served children resembling the Sodder children, accompanied by adults who seemed unwilling to let them speak. Each report was impossible to verify. Yet together they painted a troubling picture. What if the children had left the house before the fire spread? What if they had been taken? The Sodders refused to give up. In the years following the tragedy, they launched their own investigation. For decades, travelers passing through West Virginia saw the same haunting questions staring back at them. Where are the Sodder children? Imagine living with that uncertainty. Not knowing whether your children were dead or alive. Not knowing whether to mourn them or keep searching. For George and Jenny, the mystery never ended. Then, in 1967, more than 20 years after the fire, a shocking development occurred. Jenny received a mysterious envelope in the mail. Inside was a photograph of a man in his 20s. On the back was a handwritten message. The note appeared to suggest that the man was Louis Sodder, one of the missing children. The message included cryptic words and numbers that have never been fully explained. The photograph immediately captured the family's attention. The man's facial features resembled Louis. Could it really be him? The Sodders thought it was possible. George had passed away by this point, but Jenny remained determined. She hired a private investigator and sent him to investigate the lead. Then something strange happened. The investigator disappeared from the case and never reported back. The trail went cold once again. Was the photograph genuine? To this day, nobody knows. As the decades passed, the mystery grew larger. Researchers began examining every detail. Each clue seemed to point in a different direction. Yet together they created an uncomfortable possibility. Maybe the official explanation was wrong. Maybe the children never died in the fire. They argue that the fire destroyed most evidence and that eyewitness accounts are often unreliable. Memories fade, rumors spread. People sometimes see what they want to see. And after a tragedy, it's natural for grieving parents to cling to hope. Could that be what happened here? Could George and Jenny have spent decades chasing illusions because accepting the truth was simply too painful? Or were they right all along? This is what makes the Sodder mystery so compelling. So what do you think? Did the 5 Sodder children perish in the flames that night? Or were they taken away and forced to live new lives under different names? Until then, the Sodder children mystery remains one of the most haunting unanswered questions of the 20th century. A mystery that began on Christmas Eve and may never truly end.